Hey dogs, this is Isaac here, and welcome back to Isaac Reviews 2021. And what do you know, right after reviewing a movie from Sony yesterday, we're reviewing another movie from Sony in the form of Peter Rabbit 2: The Runaway, or Peter Rabbit 2 as it was titled on screen. Now, for the first Peter Rabbit, I guess it was fine. It had some good jokes and some nice animal visuals, but Peter himself was a bit annoying, the camera work was rather poor, and the overall tone just didn't really stick with me. Plus, it got into some controversy for a scene where one of the animals eats a blackberry into Mr. McGregor's mouth and he has to jab himself with an EpiPen. Yeah, Karens existed in 2018, and they were as annoying then as they are today. With that aside, Peter Rabbit 2 faced numerous delays from its original April release slot due to extenuating circumstances, until it was finally released to the public on June 11th of this year, with even the poster making fun of the long wait for its release. Anyways, since I've seen it, I can safely say that it's a bit weaker than the first one, but it isn't awful, just passable. And now I can explain why that is.
So let's get started.
So, the trailers didn't really have a consistent focus on the concrete story, but the actual movie is about Peter leaving his family behind after being portrayed as a bad guy in the promotional material for an upcoming book from Mr. McGregor's wife Bea, and he meets a street thief and twist villain named Barnabas who adopts Peter into his street gang, but after using him and his friends as tools in a heist at a local farmer's market, Peter and McGregor have to go out and rescue Peter's friends from getting into the hands of other people. All the while, Bea is pressured by a publishing company to make her books more how do you do fellow kids to increase sales, much to her husband's disliking. So right off the bat, this movie's writing is just all over the place. It doesn't have a consistent focus. It constantly jumps from one plot point to the other with hardly any explanation, and the pacing being very rushed and having several instances of mood whiplash. Also, the acting is a very mixed bag, with some where despite some doing solid performances, like the likes of Elizabeth Debicki, David Oyelowo, and Lenny James, the other performances are rather weak, especially James Corden just being his generic James Corden-y self for the millionth time. I mean, you know, variety can be a good thing. However, as mentioned earlier, this film isn't awful per se, as it does have some saving graces. Firstly, the animation on the animal characters is very nice, with the rendering and character animation being well made and having the characters fitting well with whatever setting they're in, from the rural British countryside to the town near Bea and McGregor's farm to the city of Gloucester and the farmer's market. Plus, while the message on family and the importance of making mistakes are tired and generic, the commentary on corporate executives going against the creator of an IP for the sake of monetary gain is rather interesting, seeing as how a lot of companies have been treating beloved properties as objects for making a quick buck. From the Disney remakes, to the film adaptations of Dr. Seuss's books, to the Star Wars sequels, to Nickelodeon greenlighting a truckload of SpongeBob spin-offs. So, you know, it's nice to see that this film can acknowledge how greedy those sort of practices are. Anyways, to sum things up, Peter Rabbit 2 is a prime example of a movie that just exists. It has its strengths, it has its weaknesses, and it has its forgettable aspects. Now for my recommendation, if you didn't like the first Peter Rabbit, you may not like this one either, but it's mostly harmless, so if you have any younger siblings or cousins, then they might enjoy it. And for my rating, I'll be giving this one a low 5 out of 10. It was able to avoid getting a worse score, but I wouldn't be too proud of calling it mediocre. I mean, too proud about calling it mediocre. I went off script. Why can't my brain just not eat Taco Bell when I'm doing a review? It's so annoying. Up next, we'll be reviewing Luca, which I am pretty optimistic about, despite how the characters look more like they belong in something like Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs rather than something from Pixar. Anyways, that's all for this review. Please subscribe if you enjoyed it and follow my other social medias that are linked in the description. And I'll see you later, dogs. Bye!